Good evening, one and all. We welcome you all to the one-week international seminar on women, child development, maternal health, breastfeeding, awareness, education, environment, health, well-being, and sustainable development 2023, commemorating Azadi Ka Amrit Mahotsav, nation celebrating 75 years of independence. United Nations Sustainable Development Goals 2015 to 2030 as part of awareness and campaigns and commemorating India's G20 presidency. And this entire week is also commemorated as World Breastfeeding Week from August 1st to August 7th. In collaboration with Sri Holistic Health Foundation India and Sri Research Institute, Center for Art, Sciences and Wellbeing and other fraternity. We welcome you all to the international seminar and also World Breastfeeding Week celebrations. Before we start our sessions, let's take the blessings of Almighty.
कुरुत्वं कल्याणम् आरोग्यं धनसम्पदः शुभं कुरुत्वं कल्याणम् आरोग्यं धनसम्पदः शत्रुबुद्धिविनाशाय दीपज्योतिर्नमोऽस्तुते दीपज्योतिर्नमोऽस्तुते शुभं कुरुत्वं कल्याणम् आरोग्यं धनसम्पदः शुभं कुरुत्वं कल्याणम् आरोग्यं धनसम्पदः.
With the blessings of Almighty, we shall continue with today's sessions. World Alliance for Breastfeeding Action, in short known as WABA, is a global network of individuals and organizations dedicated to the protection, promotion, and support of breastfeeding worldwide. On the call of WABA for celebrating World Breastfeeding Week, in short known as WBW, which is a global campaign to raise awareness and galvanize action on themes related to breastfeeding. World Breastfeeding Week is celebrated every year, 1st to 7th August, in commemoration of the 1990 Innocent Declaration, World Breastfeeding Week started in 1992 with annual themes including health system, women and work, and the International Code of Marketing of Breast Milk Substitutes, community support, ecology, economy, science, education, and human rights. Since 2016, World Breastfeeding Week is aligned with the Sustainable Development Goals. In 2018, a World Health Assembly resolution endorsed World Breastfeeding Week as an important breastfeeding promotion strategy. So with the objectives of WABA to inform, anchor, engage, and galvanize, to inform celebrants about the selected theme of the year, and to anchor the theme within the global breastfeeding agenda, and to engage with individuals and organizations for greater impact and galvanize action on the selected theme and related issues. WABA gives calls to all the like-minded to celebrate and commemorate in creating awareness of World Breastfeeding Week. As part of that, we are also celebrating this entire week for creating awareness on breastfeeding. We have commemorated previous year, before previous year, and similar way, we have been commemorating various international, national, regional, local commemorations to remind ourselves to take action and to keep the movement going on and keep the momentum up. So this annual campaign, WABA coordinates the global World Breastfeeding Week campaign that aims to inform, anchor, engage, and galvanize action on breastfeeding and related issues. Since 2016, as already mentioned, WABA aligned World Breastfeeding Week campaign to the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals, and they call this as WBW SDGs campaign. So this year, that is 2023, enabling breastfeeding, making a difference for working parents is the theme for World Breastfeeding 2023. A workplace needs adequate breastfeeding facilities to become a breastfeeding friendly workplace, and only 42 countries mandate workplace breastfeeding facilities. Protecting, promoting, and supporting breastfeeding addresses inequalities that stand in the way of sustainable development. Women need adequate time and support to breastfeed. Women with less than 3 months of maternity leave reported shorter breastfeeding duration than those with 3 or more months of leave. Workplace challenges remain the most common reason for women to never breastfeed or stop breastfeeding earlier than recommended. So with these challenges, World Breastfeeding Week 2023 will focus on breastfeeding and employment and work. It will also showcase the impact of paid leave, workplace support, and emerging parenting norms on breastfeeding through the lens of parents themselves. Targeting audience, including governments, policymakers, workplaces, communities, and parents will be engaged to play their critical roles in empowering families and sustaining breastfeeding-friendly environments in the post-pandemic work life. The theme is aligned with the thematic area of 4 of the World Breastfeeding Week and SDGs 2030 campaign. The COVID-19 pandemic has adversely affected childbearing women by increasing the risk of unemployment and livelihood loss, and by disrupting access to prenatal, postnatal, and further breastfeeding support and services in the healthcare system. We need to take into account the lessons learned during the pandemic and update the parental social protection policies that will address the current situation. Empowering Parents campaign by WABA promotes social protection that will facilitate the integration of parents' productive and reproductive work in both formal and informal settings. The fourth Innocenti target calls for legislation protecting the breastfeeding rights of working women. In 1993, the Mother-Friendly Workplace Initiative was the theme for the World Breastfeeding Week. The WABA Maternity Protection Coalition and global unions collaborated in the revision of 2000 ILO Maternity Protection Instruments. The Instruments Convention 183 and Recommendation 191 and the launch of the 2002 World Health Organization UNICEF Global Strategy on Infant and Young Child Feeding anchored breastfeeding in the context of women's work. The 2015 WABA UNICEF Stockholm Symposium Contemporary Solutions to the Age-Old Challenges and Breastfeeding and the Work led to the Framework for Action and subsequently Empowering the Parents campaign. With the objectives protect, promote, and support, protect gender equitable workplaces, policies, and conditions, promote parent-friendly and equitable values, social norms, and practices, support gender equitable policies and legislation at all levels. So, ensuring parental social protection in line with international labor standards, enabling workplace conditions and sharing care of domestic responsibilities, normalizing support behaviors and attitudes at home and the workplaces are the impacts. If we see the facts and figures, Just a second. Every additional month of paid maternity leave decreases the infant mortality rate by 13%. And globally, more than 800 million women workers still do not have adequate maternity protection, and takes up rates among men of parental leave are low. And we only achieve full equality for women in the workplace if men and boys do their share of care work. Women are more likely to stay in their job in the longer term if they can breastfeed at work. So breastfeeding in workplace is good for the mother, child, business, and society. Combining work and breastfeeding is not only possible, but also essential for both mother and child. Global efforts to promote breastfeeding in the workplace are starting to pay off, with more than 65% of the countries around the world are now having some sort of legislations entitling mothers to either remunerated nursing breaks or a daily reduction of working hours. But nearly a quarter of all countries still do not provide breastfeeding breaks in workplace, especially in Asia, Latin America, and the Caribbean. And this is something that needs to change, says Laura Adati, the ILO's maternity protection and work family specialist. Legal information from our maternity protection database shows that the increased efforts are needed to convince governments, employers, and sometimes even workers that combining work and breastfeeding is not only possible, but also essential for both mother and child, as well as for the business and society as a whole. She tells, having access to paid maternity leave and information is not enough, adds Aditi. A workplace that is breastfeeding friendly provides women with comfortable private facilities to express breast milk, access to fridge to store it, a clean and safe environment, as well as daycare facilities and family-friendly working time arrangements for both women and men if feasible. The lack of support at the workplace is one of the main reasons why women stop breastfeeding before the recommended time. According to the World Health Organization, this means 6 months of exclusive breastfeeding and the continued breastfeeding with the addition of nutritious complementary foods for the 2 years or beyond. Even though the quantity and nutritional quality of breast milk are not affected when the mother is working, it is sometimes difficult for women to continue to breastfeed when they go back to soon for after giving birth, back to work too soon after giving birth, especially when there is lack of breastfeeding breaks and facilities at the workplace. Lack of longer, compulsory and well-remunerated leave policies can also be an incentive to stop breastfeeding. Added additive. So lack of longer, compulsory and well-remunerated leaves policies for parents and attitudes of employers and colleagues can also be incentive to stop breastfeeding. So breastfeeding is not an obstacle to productivity. Research shows that women are more likely to stay in their job in the longer term if they can breastfeed at work, which is a good way of retaining skilled workers. And supporting breastfeeding among employees only involves limited cost for employers, both in terms of employee time and the infrastructure that it requires. A case study from Los Angeles Department of Power and Water, which provides comprehensive breastfeeding program to support worker, including on-site lactation rooms and flexible scheduling. A few years after the program was introduced, healthcare claims were 35% lower. 33% of new mothers returned to work sooner than anticipated. Absenteeism rates were 27% lower among men and women, and 67% of all employees said they plan to stay with the company in the long run. So in the countries like Belgium and Estonia, breastfeeding breaks are covered by social insurance and public funds. This means that the employers are not directly responsible for them. Such measures improve gender equality at work. Progress is also being made in developing countries. Both employers and workers from the tourism industry in Mozambique have benefited from one of the programs to improve working conditions, which include maternity protection. As informed by Aditi, it was impressive to see how employers were happy and enthusiastic to witness benefits in terms of lower absenteeism and increased worker retention after deciding to set up breastfeeding facilities. Countries such as Philippines, where the ILO is supporting a joint UN program on maternity protection and child nutrition, have also extended maternity protection, and in particular, breastfeeding arrangements and lactation stations to informal workers. Other countries, for example, India, provide cash transfers to pregnant and nursing mothers if they fulfill certain conditions, including breastfeeding. Contrary to the common belief, informal workers also face problems in continuing to breastfeed when they return to work, as they are often unable to take their children with them to the fields to collect firewood or water or the employer's household. In the case of domestic workers, when they do so, it is often comes with the risks in the child's health and well-being and may lead to early involvement in child labor. The ILO's Maternity Protection Convention 2000, number 183, and its accompanying recommendation, number 191, calls for the establishment of an integrated set of essential measures to help initiate, establish, maintain optimal breastfeeding practices. These include, but not limited to, maternity leave of at least 14 weeks paid at 66% of previous earnings, funded by compulsory social insurance or public funds, or 18 weeks with full pay as encouraged in recommendations number 191. Prenatal, childbirth, and postnatal health care for both the mother and her child, and cash benefits for women who do not qualify for social insurance. Protection for a pregnant or nursing worker from work which has been determined to be harmful to her health or that of her child. The right to return to the same or similar position paid at the same rate and protection from discrimination at work. The right to one or more daily breaks or a reduction in working time for the purpose of breastfeeding, are the various initiatives or essential measures which were included in this . So as part of the maternity protection recommendation 2000, maternity leave benefits, financing of benefits, employment protection and non-discrimination, health protection, breastfeeding mothers, and relative types of leaves are mentioned as part of the Maternity Protection Recommendation 2000 in number 191. So the initiative of World Breastfeeding Week, which is started by World Alliance for Breastfeeding Action, which is a global network of individuals and organizations dedicated to the protection, promotion, and support of breastfeeding worldwide, and is based on the Innocenti declarations and 10 links for the nurturing of future and the World Health Organization, UNICEF Global Strategy for Infant and Young Child Feeding. And WABA is in consultative status with UNICEF and the NGO in special consultative status with the Economic and Social Council of the United Nations. WABA works closely with many organizations and individuals, including the Academy of Breastfeeding Medicine, International Baby Food Action Network, International Lactating Consultant Association, United Nations Children's Fund, Lal H League International, World Health Organization, and several other international organizations. WABA affiliates are the individuals or organizations who joined WABA to dedicate themselves to the protection, promotion, and support of breastfeeding. They are required to endorse and general principles of WABA and submit an application form and to pay annual duties to be affiliates. And partners are the organizations that are committed to the protection, promotion, and support of breastfeeding, as all are part of their work and who want to collaborate with WABA. They are required to agree with WABA's goal and mandate. They must become affiliates, enter into a partnership agreement with WABA, and sign a conflict of interest and a confidentiality declaration to undertake a program of work for a specified period of time. This agreement is drawn by the Secretariat and a prospective partner and then approved by WABA Steering Council. Partners may be global partners, regional partners, or country or national partners. There are various collaborating organizations, as already mentioned. "15 years ago, at the World Health Organization, UNICEF policymakers meeting on breastfeeding in 1990s, a global initiative in Florence, Italy, the Innocenti Declaration of the Protection and Promotion of Support of Breastfeeding was produced and adopted. The declaration adopted by World Health Organization and UNICEF member states has been a key strategy on improving health of infants and young children through optimal nutrition. To mark the 15th anniversary of the adoption of the Innocenti Declaration with the Regional Authority of Tuscany and with the UNICEF Innocenti Research Center, hosted a celebration in Florence on 21st and 22nd November 2005. Which was jointly organized by a wide coalition. So innocent declaration on the protection, promotion, and support of breastfeeding provides ideal nutrition, recognizes that breastfeeding is a unique process that provides ideal nutrition for infants and contributes to their healthy growth and development, reduces incidence and severity of infectious diseases, thereby lowering infant morbidity and mortality, contributes to women's health by reducing the risk of breast and ovarian cancer, and by increasing the spacing between the pregnancies, provide social and economic benefits to the family and the nation, and provides most women with a sense of satisfaction when successfully carried out. And the recent researchers has found that these benefits increase with increased exclusiveness of breastfeeding during the first 6 months of life, and thereafter the increased duration of the breastfeeding with complementary foods and program interventions can result in positive changes and breastfeeding behavior. So breastfeeding is also linked to various aspects of development, human rights and responsibilities, ensuring that the human rights to and the responsibility for food security, for good health and safe environment, particularly for women and children, are fully observed in order to protect, promote, and support breastfeeding and sound infant and young children nutrition. Food security enable all women to practice exclusive breastfeeding from birth to about 6 months minimum of age, enable continued breastfeeding and appropriate complementary foods for up to 2 years of age or beyond, contributing to household food security, strengthening government and citizen actions that ensure adequate maternal nutrition and food security for all, encouraging production and use of appropriate indigenous complementary foods. Develop innovative social support systems for all mothers, including adequate maternity legislation, strengthen women's role in decision-making at all levels, and provide accurate information about infant and young child feeding. Encourage the development of community support groups, including mother-to-mother support groups, involving the community, including the citizen groups, religious leaders, and policymakers in educational partnership process that empower all people to improve infant and young child nutrition and thereby their own lives. Ensuring that the practices recommended in the 10 steps to successful breastfeeding as elaborated in the Baby-Friendly Hospital Initiative are implemented through the healthcare system and by traditional birth attendants. Expand the baby-friendly concepts to attend antenatal clinics, primary healthcare services, workplaces, and communities, creating an environment where every mother can naturally and easily breastfeed. So refuse any gifts, sponsorships, or support from manufacturers of infant feeding products and accessories condemn advertising that exploits women's bodies and the use of products that cause waste and harm the environment. Push for the implementation of the International Code of Marketing Breast Milk Substitutes and subsequent relevant World Health Assembly resolutions through the adoption and enforcement of strong national legislation or regulations, protect consumers and health workers from misleading commercial promotion, free trade, excess and misinformation about the Codex Almerites provisions, develop the capacity of health and childcare workers, nutritionists, government officials, social workers, citizen groups, and the community in general understand breastfeeding and sound infant and young children nutrition needs, ensure that the primary healthcare staff, nurses, midwives, doctors, specialities, specialists, and other health workers have adequate training in the breastfeeding and sound infant and young child nutrition and support the International Code of Marketing Breast Milk Substitutes related to resolutions and other appropriate international instruments. Advocates for the implementation of sound national infant and young child feeding policies, which include the promotion, protection, and support of breastfeeding and the timely use of appropriate complementary feeds, involve the media and citizen groups in creating social pressure for behavioral change towards supporting breastfeeding and sound infant and young child nutrition, influence policies and an economic, social, political, physical environment that nurtures sustainable human development, contribute to the creation of the local and national networks of organizations, individuals, and the government agencies working for the sound infant and young child feeding and broader issues of child care, link and integrate these networks with regional and international movements from all sectors of civil society that seek to nurture a sustainable future. The Global Breastfeeding Collective is a partnership of prominent international agencies calling on donors, policymakers, and civil society to increase investment in breastfeeding worldwide. The collective's vision is a world where all mothers have financial, emotional, technical, and public support they need to start breastfeeding within an hour of the child's birth, breastfed exclusively for 6 months, and continue breastfeeding with adequate, age-appropriate, and safe complementary foods for 2 years or beyond. The collective advocates for smart investments in breastfeeding, helps policymakers and non-governmental organizations implement solutions, and galvanizes public support to get real results in increased rates of breastfeeding for children, families, and nations. With the vision, a world where all mothers and families are empowered, enabled, and supported to optimally breastfeed their children, and where early initiation, exclusive breastfeeding for the first 6 months of life, and continued breastfeeding for up to 2 years or beyond, together with appropriate, adequate, safer complementary foods, become the social norms that helps children survive and develop to their full potential. With the mission to galvanize political and financial and social support to scale up breastfeeding programs and to encourage adoption of supportive legal instruments and policies at the global, regional, and country levels within the broader development, humanitarian, and human rights agendas, and thus accelerating progress to meet or exceed the World Health WHO global target calling for increase in the rate of exclusive breastfeeding to at least 50% by 2025. With the strategic goals of Global Breastfeeding Collective as fostering leadership and alliances to galvanize support to breastfeeding, effectively integrate and communicate breastfeeding messages to reach strategic audience, mobilize resources and prioritize and promote accountability, build knowledge and evidence to enhance breastfeeding policies, programs, financing, and communication. Governments play a fundamental role in protecting the health of women and children through improving policies and programs that support and enhance breastfeeding. The Global Breastfeeding Collective, or in short known as the Collective, or led by World Health Organization and UNICEF, has identified 7 policy action priorities, each with an indicator and a set target to be achieved by 2030. The Global Feeding Collective has developed a country scorecard to track progress on 7 policy actions and on breastfeeding practices within countries. It examines these indicators at the national and global levels, and the scorecard is designed to encourage and document progress on the promotion, protection, and support of breastfeeding. Each action has a progress indicator and target to be met by 2030, which serves as a call for action for policymakers worldwide to make breastfeeding support a collective national priority. The Global Breastfeeding Scorecard was first introduced by Collective in 2017 and has been updated annually ever since. So, the donor funding in US dollars for live birth as an indicator. At a global level, the score is 194. In Africa, it's 54, America 35, Asia 48, Europe 41, Oceania 16 are the scores with the indicator donor funding USD per live births. The legal status of the code scorecard globally 194, Africa 54, America 35, Asia 48, Europe 41, Oceania 60. On the indicator monitoring of the code, globally 194, Africa 54, America 35, Asia 48, Europe 41, Oceania 60. On the indicator standards on maternity leave, globally 194, Africa 54, America 35, Asia 48, Europe 41, Oceania 16. On indicator standards, workplace, accommodation, globally 194, Africa 54, America 35, Asia 48, Europe 41, and Oceania 60. The scores are similar for all the rest of the indicators. Like percentage of births in baby, friendly hospitals and maternities, percentage of births observed on breastfeeding, at birth, percentage of caregiver on IYCF, inclusion in IFCF support in pre-service curricula, percentage of district and various other parameters. So these scorecard, which tracks progress on 7 policy actions and on breastfeeding practices within countries, World Health Organization and UNICEF have established recommendations for breastfeeding practices, as we have seen. Although every mother decides how to feed her child, this decision is strongly influenced by economic, environmental, social, and political factors. The Global Breastfeeding Scorecard analyzes indicators on how countries protect, promote, and support breastfeeding through funding or policies. The Breastfeeding Scorecard is also available country-wise and updated annually since 2017, and the recent one is 2022. So due to pandemic, there is a break. Breastfeeding is a vital part of providing every child with the healthiest start in the life. It is a baby's first vaccine and best source of nutrition and can bolster brain development. Breastfeeding also nurtures national economies. Increased rates of breastfeeding can improve a country's prosperity by lowering healthcare costs and producing stronger, more able workforces. But breastfeeding is not just a one-woman job. It requires encouragement and support from skilled counselors, family members, healthcare providers, employers, policymakers, and others. By investing US dollars 530 million a year for the next 10 years, governments, donors, and partners can help raise the rate of exclusive breastfeeding or at least 50%. So improved rates of breastfeeding lead to improved health and development for children, improved health for women, and improved cognitive development, learning and education attainment, improved productivity, improved wages, and improved economy, the GDP. So the Global Breastfeeding Collective calls for increasing financing and better implementation of policies, programs, and interventions to provide mothers the support they need to breastfeed. Governments can take 7 actions to drive progress on the breastfeeding and raise global rate of exclusive breastfeeding to at least 50% by 2025. By increasing the funding to raise the rate of breastfeeding from birth to 2 years, adopting and monitoring the International Code of Marketing of Breast Milk Substitutes, enact paid family leave and workplace breastfeeding policies, implementing the 10 steps to successful breastfeeding in maternity facilities, improving access to skilled breastfeeding counseling in health facilities, strengthening links between the health facilities and communities to support breastfeeding, monitor the progress of policies, programs, and funding for breastfeeding, are the various initiatives taken by them, the global collective. So when we look at the history of WABA, it was formed as a global network of individuals in organizations dedicated to the protection, promotion, and support of breastfeeding in 1991, and mother-friendly workplace initiative to support working breastfeeding women in 1993, Global Participatory Action Research Project, in short known as GLOPAR, in 1994, Beijing Platform for the Action of the 4th World Conference on Women to include breastfeeding in 1995, WABA's first Global Forum on Children's Health, Children's Rights, Thailand, 10 Links for Nurturing the Future, Action Tool, World Food. In 1996, International Labour Organization, ILO Maternity Protection Convention Revision at the 88th ILO Conference, Geneva, Global Initiative for Mother Support, in short known as GIMS, in 2000. And WABA's first Global Breastfeeding Partners Meeting in Brazil in 2001. And WABA's second Global Forum on Nurturing the Future, Challenges to Breastfeeding in 21st Century, Tanzania. WABA UNICEF Colloquium on HIV/AIDS in 2022. World Breastfeeding Charter, Breastfeeding Movement, SOS book publication in 2003. And WABA third Global Breastfeeding Partners Meeting in Costa Rica in 2004. Innocenti Plus 15 commemoration in 2005. WABA Youth Initiative, Gender, Child Survival and HIV Conference with York University, Canada, 2006. Co-organized the first Breeding Advocacy and Practice BAP course with the Infant Feeding Consortium, IFC, in 2007, state of the art. Co-organized the second Breeding Advocacy and Practice BAP course with Infant Feeding Consortia, IFSC, IFC, and WABA's fourth Global Breastfeeding Partners in 2008. WABA's third Global Breastfeeding Partners Forum in Malaysia and WABA's fifth Global Breastfeeding Partners Meeting, Malaysia, and Breastfeeding Gateway, Breastfeeding Quill Initiative in 2010, co-organized the third Breastfeeding Advisory and Practice BAP course with the Infant Feeding Consortium in 2011, co-organized the fourth Breastfeeding Advocacy and Practice BAP course with Infant Feeding Consortium, IFC, and their mascot was Anastasia, which was discovered In 2012, co-organized the 5th Breastfeeding Advocacy and Practice BAP course with the Infant Feeding Consortium in 2013. Co-organized the 6th Breastfeeding Advocacy and Practice BAP course with the Infant Feeding Consortium Symposium Contemporary Solutions in 2015. And Baba's 7th Global Breastfeeding Partnership Meeting in Malaysia and World Breastfeeding Week campaign alignment with the UN Sustainable Development Goals in 2016. Co-organized the 7th Breastfeeding Advocacy and Practice course, BAP course, with the Infant Feeding Consortium, IFC, and one chain of support in 2007. So in 2018, Empowering Parents Campaign Understanding International Policy on HIV Breastfeeding, a comprehensive resource marking Penang Breastfeeding Project and review in 2018, and so on are the various initiatives taken by Baba. So let's make breastfeeding and work with more than 500 million working women are not given essential maternity protections in national laws. Just 20% of the countries require employers to provide employees and paid breaks, facilities for breastfeeding and expressing milk. Fewer than half of the infants under 6 months of age are exclusively breastfed. Supported by World Health Organization, UNICEF, and many ministries of health and civil society partners. World Breastfeeding Week is held in the first week of August every year, and it is one of the most effective ways to ensure child health and survival, and yet currently fewer than half of the infants under 6 months old are exclusively breastfed. In 2018, a World Health Assembly resolution endorsed World Breastfeeding Week as an important health promotion strategy with a different theme each year. It aims to promote the enabling environment that help women to breastfeed, including support the community and the workplace with adequate protections in government policies and laws, as well as sharing information on breastfeeding benefits and strategies. So this year, the theme is Let's Make Breastfeeding and Work. Breastfeeding is one of the most effective ways to ensure child health and survival. However, it is not to the extent of as it is expected. Breast milk is ideal food for infants. It is safe, clean, and contains antibodies which help protect against many childhood illness. Breast milk provides all the energy and nutrients that the infant needs for the first months of life, and it continues to provide up to half or more of child nutritional needs during the second half of the first year and up to 1/3 during the second year of life. Breastfed children perform better on intelligence tests and are less likely to be overweight or obese and less prone to diabetes later in life. Women who breastfed also have a reduced risk of breast and ovarian cancers. Inappropriate marketing of breast milk substitutes continue to undermine effects of improving breastfeeding. The World Health Organization and the United Nations Children's Fund, UNICEF, World Health WHO have hosted the first global Congress on the implementation of International Code of Marketing of Breast Milk Substitutes on 20 to 22nd June 2023 in Geneva, Switzerland. During the event, delegates from around 130 countries discussed and shared knowledge and strategies to end the unethical marketing of breast milk substitutes. This World Health Assembly, WHO, 1981, adopted the International Code of Marketing Breast Milk Substitutes. 40 years later, formula milk manufacturing companies continue to violate these established principles and place commercial interest before children's and families' health. Subsequently, World Health Assembly resolution have repeatedly called upon the national governments to enact, monitor, and enforce the provisions of the code. The response to call to action launched by World Health Organization and UNICEF have been inadequate and further underscore the need for stronger government. Over 70% of the member states have enacted legislation that puts in place at least some of the provisions of the code, but industries are still expanding to push an ever-increasing range of formula milk products on families using insider tactics to access their networks and influence their choices. Parents have the right to impartial information on infant feeding, which is actively undermined by exploitative industry marketing. While a majority of countries have enacted at least some provisions of the code, in national laws and regulations, gaps and loopholes often remain in the legislation, allowing violations of the code to persist. Most countries do not have the active systems to monitor marketing practices, and enforcement provisions are typically weak. In the last few years, many countries have strengthened their protections against inappropriate marketing of breast milk substitutes. For example, in 2022, the government of Kenya fought back against lobbying from food manufacturers to develop regulations and develop a monitoring system to identify violations of the law. World Health Organization, UNICEF, and civil society partner organizations have developed a variety of tools to advocate the code implementation, document the extent of formula milk marketing, evaluate current laws, develop monitoring systems, and strengthen enforcement of the code, while also working to increase parents' access to unbiased information free from commercial influence or infant feed nutrition. On February 23rd, 2022, World Health Organization and UNICEF and partners launched a new report, How the Marketing Formula Milk Influences Our Decisions on Infant Feeding. The report exposed the extensive and aggressive marketing practices used by formula milk industry to target new and prospective parents, often in flagrant violation of the International Code of Marketing of Breast Milk Substitutes. So World Health Organization and partners are working to help countries fully implement the standards of code and protect parents from influences of harmful marketing. This report summarizes the findings of a multi-country study examining the impact of formula milk marketing on infant feeding decisions and practices, which was commissioned by World Health Organization and UNICEF. The research study, the largest of its kind to date, draws on the experiences of over 8,500 women and more than 300 health professionals across 8 countries, including Bangladesh, China, Mexico, Morocco, Nigeria, South Africa, the United Kingdom, and Vietnam. It exposes the aggressive marketing practices used by formula milk industry, highlights the impacts on the women and families, and outlines opportunities for action. So parents want what's best for their babies. The formula milk industry wants what's best for its bottom line. So end exploitative marketing. And to improve child health and well-being, immediate kangaroo mother care, also known as KMC, reduces risks of sepsis among small and preterm babies, according to new analysis published by the medical journal eClinical magazine. Among these vulnerable newborns, immediate KMC, which combines skin-to-skin contact with exclusive breastfeeding or provision of breast milk, reduced suspected sepsis by 18% and sepsis-related deaths by 36% and overall deaths by 25%. The research indicates that the starting kangaroo mother care as soon as the baby is born even before they are stabilized, provides preterm and low birth weight babies with the best protection against severe infections. Dr. Anshu Banerjee, Director of Maternal Health, Newborn Child and Adolescent Health and Aging at World Health Organization, said KMC is an important strategy for infection prevention and control among babies born early or small. The secondary analysis looked at the outcomes from a multi-country randomized controlled trial in 5 countries, which involved more than 3,200 very small or preterm babies. In the study, KMC was initiated soon after birth within 2 hours and given continuously before and after stabilization. This means that the mother or surrogate caregiver and the newborn needed to be together without separation for as long as possible. Within that, what was mother called a mother newborn intensive care unit. The concept of the mother newborn intensive care unit posed a challenge in the mindset of many health professionals and policymakers who were concerned about a potential increase in infections caused by the continuous presence of mothers or surrogates within the intensive care facilities. As said by Dr. Harish Chellani, one of the clinical investigators of the Vardhaman Mahavir Medical College and Safarganj Hospital in New Delhi, India. In reality, the study showed that enabling immediate kangaroo mother care did not increase neonatal sepsis, but rather reduced it. As mentioned by Dr. Sugandha Arya, who is also a clinical investigator at the same site. The analysis adds to mounting evidence showing the incredible benefits of immediate KMC for small and preterm babies, including improved survival, lower infection rates, reduced hypothermia, and better feeding. For all preterm or low birth weight babies, including babies that are very small or sick, World Health Organization now recommends starting KMC as soon as possible after birth. For many health facilities, this will require a fundamental change in the way neonatal care is provided to ensure families and small babies can stay together without any period of separation. While data on blood culture was limited, the analysis also provided a promising indication that bacterial isolates might be different among those babies receiving immediate KMC compared to those getting conventional care in an incubator or a radiant warmer. Of note, the former had fewer gram-negative bacteria that are more likely to be drug-resistant, which could help and explain lower mortality rates. More research is needed, however, to confirm this part of analysis. So, conducted by World Health Organization and several external investigators, the secondary analysis assessed data from the immediate kangaroo mother care study that took place between 2017 and 2020. This study was conducted in 5 newborn intensive care units in Ghana, India, Malawi, Nigeria, and Tanzania in newborns with the birth weight ranging from 1 to 1.8 kg. The study compared the outcomes for babies where KMC was initiated immediately after birth compared to babies who received conventional care in a warmer or incubator followed by KMC. Only one clinical stabilization was achieved. And recently, in May 2023, World Health Organization released 2 new resources to support wider uptake of kangaroo mother care, KMC, a life-saving technique which includes ongoing skin-to-skin contact and exclusive breastfeeding to benefit more and small and preterm babies. Now, the leading cause of death of children under 5 Prematurity is an urgent public health issue. Every year, an estimated of 13.4 million babies are born preterm, that is before 37 weeks of pregnancy, while an even higher number, over 20 million babies, have a low birth weight under 2.5 kg at birth. For these babies, KMC is proven effective intervention for saving lives and improving their health and development. Kangaroo mother care is one of the most crucial life-saving measures to improve the survival prospects and well-being of the babies born early or small against an as said by Dr. Anshu Banerjee, Director for Maternal, Newborn, Child and Adolescent Health at World Health Organization. So ensuring mothers and babies everywhere can stay together and practice kangaroo mother care immediately after birth will require a radical rethink of how maternal and newborn is organized. These new publications aim to support the process. The two publications, a global position paper and implementing strategy, seek to enable expansion of KMC within the health facilities and at home globally. They follow the release of landmark new guidelines published last year, which recommended KMC as the essential standard for the care of all preterm and low birth weight babies, starting right after birth. The new documents highlight it should be available both for babies that are well and sick for at least 8 hours a day, including in intensive care. So for most health facilities, achieving the widespread adoption of kangaroo mother care for all preterm or low birth weight babies will require fundamental changes in newborn care provision, especially neonatal intensive care. So this includes changes to the physical layout of care facilities that enable the mother to stay with her small and sick baby inside the newborn care unit on a 24/7 basis. It also means changing the way healthcare is provided so that obstetricians, midwives, pediatricians, and nurses work together in harmony to take care for mothers and babies in one place as a unit. KMC has been shown to significantly improve survival and health outcomes for preterm and low birth weight babies compared to clinical stabilization in a more high-tech incubator or warmer. In fact, data shows that it can increase preterm survival rates by as much as third and reduce infections, prevent hypothermia, and improve feeding and growth. It is also empowering and reassuring for mothers and families who take a leading role in providing care for their infants. Despite these benefits, only around a third of countries are estimated to have an update policy on guidelines on KMC, meaning millions of preterm and low birth weight babies are likely to be missing out on this life-saving technique. So the new documents outline some key actions that should be taken to enable the wider adoption and implementation of KMC. Government should recognize and include KMC as essential care for all preterm or small babies, ensuring it is financed, monitored, including the necessary infrastructure changes within hospitals as part of national programs. Additional parental leave and entitlements can help address the special needs of the caregivers of preterm or low birth weight infants so that they can provide the required care. Facilities and healthcare providers should help ensure small and preterm babies can benefit from skin-to-skin contact with their mother for the recommended 8 to 24 hours a day, starting immediately after birth. Critically, both mother and newborn should receive respectful care together as a unit even when the infant is sick and requires care inside the newborn care unit. Parents and caregivers should be involved in routine care and all aspects of decision-making around the care of their newborns. They should be supported with coaching, emotional and practical assistance to provide KMC for their small and preterm babies. Partners and family members can help in providing KMC, providing relief for the mother, stepping in if she is unwell, and helping meet her needs while she is caring for her baby. Developed in collaboration with a multi-country, multi-stakeholder working group, these resources are directed to the governments, program partners, policy makers, and the broader public health community to help countries expand KMC for babies born early or small. Around the world, World Health Organization is providing ongoing assistance in implementing and scaling up KMC as a foundation of small and or sick newborn care with national and maternal, newborn and child health programs. So from the earliest moments of child's life, breastfeeding is ultimate child survival and development intervention. Breastfeeding protects babies from common infectious diseases and boosts children's immune systems, providing the key nutrients children need to grow and develop to their fullest potential. Babies who aren't breastfed are 14 times more likely to die before they reach their first birthday than babies who are exclusively breastfed. Supportive workplaces are key. Evidence shows that while breastfeeding rates drop significantly for women when they return to work, that negative impact can be reversed, and when workplaces facilitate mothers to continue to breastfeed their babies. Family-friendly workplace policies such as paid maternity leave, breastfeeding breaks, and a room where mothers can be breastfed or expressly create an environment that benefits not only working women and their families, but also employers. These policies generate economic returns by reducing maternity-related absenteeism, increasing the retention of female workers, and reducing the cost of hiring and training new staff. Supporting breastfeeding in the workplace is good for mothers, babies, and business, and that is why UNICEF and World Health Organization are calling on governments, donors, civil society, and the private sector to step up efforts to ensure a supportive breastfeeding environment for all working mothers, including those in informal sector or in temporary contracts. By having access to regular breastfeeding breaks and facilitates that enable mothers to continue breastfeeding their children once they return to work. Provide sufficient paid leave to all working parents and caregivers to meet the needs of their young children. This includes paid maternity leave for a minimum of 18 weeks, preferably for a period of 6 months or more after birth. Increase investments in breastfeeding support policies and programs in all settings, including the national policy and programs that regulates and promotes public and private sector support to breastfeeding, where women in workplace Every infant and child has the right to good nutrition according to the Convention on the Rights of the Child. Undernutrition is associated with 45% of the child deaths globally. In 2020, 149 million children under 5 were estimated to be stunted, too short for age, 25 million were estimated to be wasted, too thin for height, and 38.9 million were overweight or obese. About 44% of the infants 0 to 6 months old are exclusively breastfed. Few children receive nutritionally adequate and safe complementary foods. In many countries, less than a fourth of infants 6 to 23 months of age meet the criteria of dietary diversity and feeding frequency that are appropriate for their age. Over 8,20,000 children lives could be saved every year among children under 5 years if all children 0 to 23 months were optimally breastfed. Breastfeeding improves IQ, school attendance, and is associated with higher income in adult life. Improving child development and reducing health costs through breastfeeding results in economic gains for individual families as well as at the national level. Undernutrition is estimated to be associated with 2.7 million child deaths annually, or 45% of all child deaths. Infant and young child feeding is a key area to improve child survival and promote healthy growth and development. The first 2 years of the child life are particularly important, as optimal nutrition during the period lowers morbidity and mortality, reduces the risk of chronic diseases, and fosters better development. Overall, optimal breastfeeding is so critical that it could save the lives of over 8,20,000 children under the age of 5 years each year. World Health Organization and the UNICEF recommends early initiation of breastfeeding within 1 hour of birth. Exclusive breastfeeding for first 6 months of life and introduction of nutritionally adequate and safe complementary solid foods at 6 months, together with the continued breastfeeding up to 2 years of age or beyond. However, many infants and children do not receive optimal feeding. For example, only about 44% of the infants aged 0 to 6 months worldwide were exclusively breastfed over the period of 2015 to 2020. Recommendations have been refined to also address the needs for infants born to HIV-infected mothers. Antiretroviral drugs now allow these children to exclusively breastfeed until they are 6 months old and continue breastfeeding until at least 12 months of age with a significantly reduced risk of HIV transmission. Exclusive breastfeeding for 6 months has many benefits for the infant and mother. Chief among these is protection against gastrointestinal infections, which is observed not only in developing but also industrial countries. Early initiation of breastfeeding within 1 hour of the birth protects the newborn from acquiring infections and reducing newborn mortality. The risk of mortality due to diarrhea and other infections can increase in infants who are either partially breastfed or not breastfed at all. Breast milk is also an important source of energy and nutrients in children aged to 6 to 23 months. It can provide half or more of the child's energy needs between the ages of 6 and 12 months, and 1/3 of the energy needs between 12 and 24 months. Breast milk is also a critical source of energy and nutrients during illness and reduces mortality among children who are malnourished. Children and adolescents who were breastfed as babies are less likely to be overweight or obese. Additionally, they perform better on intelligence tests and have higher school attendance. Breastfeeding is also associated with higher income in adult life. Improving child development and reducing health costs results in economic gains for individual families as well as at the national level. So longer durations of breastfeeding also contribute to the health and well-being of mothers. It reduces the risk of ovarian and breast cancer and helps space pregnancies. Exclusive breastfeeding of babies under 6 months has an hormonal effect which often induces a lack of menstruation. This is natural, though not fail-safe, method of birth control known as the lactation Amenorrhea method. Mothers and families need to be supported for their children to be optimally breastfed. Actions that help protect, promote, and support breastfeeding include adoption of policies such as International Labour Organization's Maternity Protection Convention 0183 and recommendations number 191, which complements Convention number 183 by suggesting a longer duration of leave and higher benefits, adoption of the International Code of Marketing of Breast Milk Substitutes, and subsequent relevant World Health Assembly resolutions, implementing of the 10 steps to successful breastfeeding specified by Baby Friendly Hospital Initiative, including skin-to-skin contact between the mother and baby immediately after the birth and initiation of breastfeeding within the first hour of life. Breastfeeding on demand, that is as often as child wants, day and night. Rooming in, allowing mothers and infants to remain together 24 a day, not giving babies additional food or drink, even water, unless medically necessary. Provision of supporters, healthcare services with infant and young child feeding counseling during all contacts with caregivers and young children, such as during antenatal and postnatal care, well child and sick child visits and immunization, and community support, including mother support groups and community-led based health promotion and educational activities. Breastfeeding practices are highly responsive to supportive interventions, and the prevalence of exclusive and continued breastfeeding can be improved over the course of few years. Complementary feeding. At around the age of 6 months, an infant's needs for energy and nutrients start to exceed what is provided by breast milk, and complementary foods are necessary to meet those needs. An infant of this age is also developing and developmentally ready for other foods. It is complementary foods that are not introduced at this age of 6 months, or if they are given inappropriately, an infant's growth may falter. Guiding principles for appropriate complementary feeding are continue frequent on-demand breastfeeding until 2 years of age or beyond. Proactive responsive feeding, for example, feeding infants directly and assist older children feed slowly and patiently. Encourage them to eat but not to force them. Talk to child and maintain eye contact. Practice good hygiene and proper food handling. Start at 6 months with small amounts of food and increase gradually as the child gets older. Gradually increase food consistently and variety. Increase the number of times that the child is fed, 2 to 3 meals per day for infants 6 to 8 months of age, and 3 to 4 meals per day for infants 9 to 23 months of age, and with 1 to 2 additional snacks as required. Using fortified complementary foods or vitamin mineral supplements as needed. And during the illness, increase fluid intake, including more breastfeeding, and offer soft favorite foods. Feeding in exceptionally difficult circumstances. Families and children in difficult circumstances require special attention and practical support. Wherever possible, mothers and babies should remain together and get the support they need to exercise the most appropriate feeding option available. Breastfeeding remains the preferred mode of infant feeding in almost all difficult situations. For instance, low birth weight or premium infants, mothers living with HIV in settings where mortality due to diarrhea, pneumonia, and malnutrition remain prevalent. Adolescent mothers, infants, and young children who are malnourished, and families suffering from consequences of complex emergencies. And HIV and infant feeding needs special care. Breastfeeding, especially early and inclusive breastfeeding, is one of the most significant ways to improve infant survival rates. When HIV can pass from mother to her child during pregnancy, labor, or delivery, and also through breast milk, the evidence on HIV and infant feeding shows that given antiretroviral treatment, ART, to mothers living with HIV significantly reduces the risk of transmission through breastfeeding and also improves their health. World Health Organization now recommends that all people living with HIV, including pregnant women and lactating mothers living with HIV, take ART therapy treatment for life when they first learn their infection status. Mothers living in settings where morbidity and mortality due to diarrhea, pneumonia, and malnutrition are prevalent, and national health authorities endorse breastfeeding should exclusively breastfeed their babies for 6 months and then introduce appropriate complementary foods and continue breastfeeding up to at least the child's first birthday. So World Health Organization is committed in supporting countries and implementation and monitoring of the comprehensive implementation plan on maternal, infant and young child nutrition endorsed by member states in May 2012. The plan included 6 targets, one of which is to increase by 2025 the rate of exclusive breastfeeding for the first 6 months up to 50%. Activities that help to achieve this include those outlined in the global strategy for infant and young feeding, which aims to protect, promote, and support appropriate infant and young child feeding. UNICEF and World Health Organization created the Global Breastfeeding Collective to rally political, legal, financial, and public support for breastfeeding. The collective brings together implementations and donors from governments, philanthropies, international organizations, and civil society. The collective's vision in a world in which all mothers have the technical, financial, emotional, and public support they need to breastfeed. World Health Organization has formed the network for global monitoring and support for implementation of the International Code of Marketing of Breast Milk Substitutes and subsequent relevant World Health Assembly resolutions, also known as NETCode. The goal of NETCode is to protect and promote breastfeeding and ensuring the breast milk substitutes are not marketed inappropriately. Specifically, NETCode is building the capacity of member states and civil society to strengthen national code legislation. Continuously monitor, adhere to the code, take action to stop all violations. In addition, World Health Organization and UNICEF have developed courses for training health workers to provide skill support to breastfeeding mothers, help them overcome problems, and monitor the growth of children so that they can identify early risk of undernutrition or overweight obesity. World Health Organization provides simple, coherent, and feasible guidance to countries for promoting and supporting improved infant feeding by HIV-infected mothers to prevent mother-to-child transmission, good nutrition of the baby, and protect the health of the mother. So with this, we shall conclude today's sessions, and tomorrow we will look at various other topics. And this entire week we will be discussing on various aspects, topics, sessions related to breastfeeding. So thank you everyone for joining. I hope the information is useful for everyone. And tomorrow we will also look at various aspects of net code and this international code and various other aspects. So finally, at the end of the day, the priority of mother's health and child's health and nutrition is important. You know, the first 5 years are crucial for the mother and as well as the baby, or the first 6 years, which will influence both the mother and child for next 50 to 60 years. That's why if we compromise on breastfeeding, the child's health and immunity is compromised for the next 50 to 60 years. So don't get into the propaganda marketing of these formula milk companies. They want their business happen, so they will use all kinds of strategies to make mothers to get rid of breastfeeding. That again, puts both mother and child into risk of various diseases. So we have raised overall feedback form in the form of Zoom polls. We request everyone to quickly fill up the feedback form before you leave the platform. It is mandatory. And daily fill up the form every day. Certificates will be issued on a daily basis after the conference in a week's time. So continue attending daily and daily fill up the feedback form. Each day you will be getting a certificate. For all 7 days, you will be getting 7 certificates on daily basis. And if anyone is interested in making presentations, register and complete the formalities and let us know so that we can take up the presentations in coming days for the entire 1 week. We request everyone to quickly fill up the overall feedback form before you leave the platform and join us daily for the next 1 week to gain more insights about breastfeeding, education and awareness and support the initiative. So we thank you and express our gratitude for registering and joining us. See you all tomorrow at the same time with the same link at 6 p.m. Take care. Good night.